Welcome back to Your Deep Life for Christian Women, the podcast where we explore how women of faith are taking bold and courageous steps of faith to live out God's purpose with joy, peace, and authenticity. I'm your host, Barbara Chambers. If this is your first time here, would you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any new episodes? And if this episode that you're listening to today resonates or impacts you in any way, please add a like and then share it with someone you know who needs to hear it. This means so much to me because when you subscribe, like, or share, you help this podcast to reach so many more people around the world that I can't get to on my own. And for that, I just want to say thank you, and I am truly grateful. Now, today's episode is for the woman who feels a gentle but persistent nudge from God. The one who knows she's been called to something meaningful, even if the path forward isn't fully clear yet. In this episode, Advocacy, Walking in Obedience, I'm joined by Dr. Crystal Garvey, a nursing professional, researcher, educator, and passionate advocate for Black mental health. With over 20 years' experience in healthcare and community leadership, Dr. Garvey shares what it looks like to say yes to God's leading, allowing faith and compassion and courage to guide her work in spaces that desperately need healing and understanding. So take a deep breath, open your heart, and lean in as we explore what obedience can unlock when purpose and faith walk hand in hand. Hello and welcome, Dr. Crystal Garvey, to the Your Deep Life podcast for Christian women. It's so great to have you here today. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really an honor.
Yeah, I know we've been trying to hook this up for a while, and we were both presenting earlier this year at the One Thing conference.
Yes.
With Minister Dagmar Coy, which was such a powerful event, and your presentation was just, wow, awesome.
Thank you.
So I want us to get started on this whole topic that we're discussing today, and really want to discover and find out from you. This is a question I ask everyone when I meet people on this podcast is, what does purpose mean to you? I know it's a deep question. It's a big question, right?
It is. It's a loaded question.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, the simple answer would be that you live out your calling through the giftings that you've been attributed at birth. And so part of that purpose is to understand your gift, refine your gift, and then use your gift to, edify and uplift community in whatever capacity that may look like. I do believe that sometimes people think that purpose is like this big thing that you have to do. Like I'm just going to take off my glasses for a second because I'm not reading anything right now.
Yeah.
But people think that, purpose is like something big, something grandiose. Like, I have to have, contact with millions or hundreds of thousands of people. But sometimes purpose, it could be as simple as having contact with one person. And, having that and not realizing having that contact with one person then has that domino effect, or we call the butterfly effect.
Yeah.
Or you throw the stone in the puddle or in the pond, and then you have the ripple effect. And, I do believe that if people were, for myself anyway, purpose is really understanding who you are and the impact you have on a person. And then knowing that that impact on that one person then has impact on people, then the community, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. I love how you say that. And as you were saying that, I was instantly thinking about Dr. Billy Graham.
Yes.
And I remember watching this documentary of his life, and they were talking about the minister, his local pastor. He went to an event and he heard this minister speak, and that's when he gave his life to Christ and his life was transformed. And that one minister did not realize that this one person that came to Christ at his meeting would impact the entire world, and millions of people would come to Christ through his ministry. So that's very much what you're just saying, that sometimes it's not about the more than, or the lots and lots of people, or the millions of people, which we live in this world where it's all about number of likes and number of followers and all of that. And if I don't have thousands or hundreds of thousands, then I'm not making an impact. But whereas in God's kingdom, just the one will make a difference.
He leaves the one for the 99.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. Now, you obviously are a clinical nurse, you're a clinical nurse, you're a registered nurse, and that's your career has spans 20 years in the nursing profession. You're also now a educator.
Yeah, so I teach in a collaborative nursing program. Correct.
Right. And you're also a researcher and a community advocate, right?
I am.
So what was that moment when you decided that this is the career or this is the direction? What was it that made you decide to go down this particular path?
I don't know if I necessarily decided more than, I want to say there were moments of just walking in obedience.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that because as a new grad nurse and working in forensics mental health, while I saw disparities, I'm like, well, this is the narrative of the lived experience of members of our community when it comes to how they're being treated in the mental health setting.
Mm-hmm.
And then, going into working in the emerge, I'm like, not much different in how we're being treated, but I like what I do. And not to say I'm happy when people are sick or, bad things happen, but I'm happy I can be a part of your journey in the capacity of healing.
Mm-hmm.
And, I really did think back then, or thought back then, I should say, that I would have stayed in emerge, become a clinical educator,
Mm-hmm.
and then eventually a manager, and that would have been my career path. Like I really did think that, because I loved emerge. I loved everything about emerge, and I loved trauma. I loved it all. And I will tell you that one turning point was me leaving my shift one day
Yeah.
from the hospital and walking towards the change rooms to go and change and head on home. And as I was walking towards the change room, one of my professors in the nursing program was there doing an evaluation for a student nurse that was doing their consolidation in the emerge. And I didn't even see her, to be honest with you. She saw me, and she literally beelined for me. And I just saw this blonde hair, blue eyed woman beeline. And I'm like, who is this person? And she literally came into my space and she goes, I know who you are. And she, she would do this when she would speak. And she puts her finger on her nose, blonde hair, blue eyed woman. And she goes, I know who you are. And then she says my name. And I said, hi, Mary. How are you? And she's like, you are such a fabulous student. How about you come and teach? And I'm like, wrong answer. Because I thought I didn't have patience for students,
Mm-hmm.
right? I thought, well, I have patience for patients because I know you're sick, you're vulnerable. So, if you yell at me or you curse at me, I'm not moved by that because I know you're scared, you're vulnerable. And so you're navigating a narrative that I have compassion for. I don't know if I have compassion for students. It's a different kind of bandwidth,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's why I had no interest in becoming a teacher. And I remember saying, yeah, no, I'll pass. And she's like, no, she goes, you've always been, one to listen to me, which was true. And I said, she goes, just try it one semester. Just try and come and teach. She goes, we arranged the interview. And I said, okay. And I showed up at the college, but it wasn't an interview. It was more of a formality. I showed up and it was, here's where you're teaching. Here are the days of the week you're teaching. Sign on the dotted line. And I remember Mary was in the room and I'm looking at her like, what is this about? And I signed on the dotted line and that was one of those moments in life where I walked in obedience
Mm.
because everything within me said no. And when I say within me, the flesh within me is like, no,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not doing this.
Mhm.
But there was a tug, and that tug was like, sign, trust me.
Mm.
And, that was the beginning of the end when it came to teaching for me. And I really then thought, well, I'm just going to become a teacher. I'm going to teach because I really liked it. But
Mhm.
then as life evolved, I ended up here. Right. So there was those key moments, right? It was, experiencing, and I'll say it, in tribulations and in trials, in the mess, there's always a message, right? And
Mhm.
in the chaos of, experiencing the hardship, because especially in nursing school, right? I experienced a lot of racism, a lot of harm during the learning process. And Mary was one of the few that, she was not she was not racist, but she was an accomplice, is what I was looking for, right? So she
Mm.
saw, some of the things that myself and other Black nursing students at the time were going through, and
Mhm.
found ways to help advocate for us and support us in that journey.
Right.
And I always give her flowers in every space that I'm in. I don't know if I'll ever see her again, but I always give thanks to her because she saw
Yeah.
something in me that I never saw in myself.
Yeah.
And but then even as an educator, I experienced the racism, but then I would see the racism students would experience, and I think that in itself started to help me shape what advocacy looked like, not
Mhm.
only for myself but for students,
Mhm.
because who was going to be their voice, because they can't speak up, because if they do, it puts they put themselves at risk for not being successful in the program.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know because of just because I wanted to get the opportunity to teach full time, I had to navigate the moving goalpost, as we would call it. So in the journey of education, it was, oh, you need your bachelor's, you get your bachelor's, and then all of a sudden the rules change. Now you
Yeah.
need your master's,
Yeah.
and then you get your master, oh, the rules change again, and you need your PhD. So having to navigate the systemic narrative,
Yes.
uh, as one of our community tends to have to navigate. Also helped with regards to where I'm at. More of I would say, not even help. I think it's been the impetus to how I got here and the why. But every step, I will say though, it really was walking in obedience, and sometimes reluctantly. And I will say, even sometimes kicking and screaming.
Yeah, I hear you. And I mean, navigating that journey, right, and dealing with all of those, this is something that we as women of color um are dealing with every day, right? And
Yeah.
this is our constant battle. We have
Mhm.
learned to navigate this path in a way that we do it with grace, we do it with humility, and sometimes with inner turmoil because we can't express and share verbally as we try to. I'm trying to be diplomatic with my words, right? As we try to still maintain life. We still have bills to pay. We still have things that we want to do, but we want to excel. And we recognize that we have to play a game to navigate some of the doors that we want to burst down and some of the glass ceilings that we want to crack so that we can make it easier for those coming up behind us. But
Absolutely.
what's such a sad indictment is that this has been happening for centuries. This has been our cry for decades, for centuries. And you get to a point, I mean, the last couple of days was that terrible incident in Australia, that terrible shooting on Bondi Beach. And, when it happened and I saw it, I started to cry. And in my prayers, as I began to pray for the families who were affected and the people who were traumatized by this incident, I began to cry and I said, God, how long? How long will we have indifferences and discriminations because we don't look like or fit in or can be accepted by other people? And I remember praying, and the Lord took me to a scripture. I think it was Psalms 81 or 82. I think 82. And can I just get my Bible a minute and just,
Yes.
I just feel like I need to do this. I don't know why I'm going down this road, but I'm just going to quickly. Yeah, it was Psalms 82 I was reading this week, and the title of the Psalms was A Plea for Justice. And that's what as I was praying, that's what I felt the Lord saying, read Psalms 82. And it was, God stands in the congregation of the mighty. He judges among the gods. How long will you judge unjustly? And this is what I think, and show partiality to the wicked. I think this is what God is saying to us as people. How long will we continue to make decisions around the indifferences of other people? And, you know, it's our job to defend the poor and the fatherless, to do justice to the afflicted and needy. They do not know, nor do they understand. They walk about in darkness. All the foundations of the earth are unstable. And the last verse says, arise, O God, judge the earth, for you shall inherit all nations. And I think for me, it was just very much about that. God, where's the justice? Who's going to cry for justice in the earth? And when we think about all that's going on and how people are treated, and I mean, you work in the mental health industry, right? And you work in that sector, and you see the disparities between how Black people are treated versus how our counterparts are treated. And you've become an advocate for this, right? What drives your heart? What is it that drives you?
I'll preface it just in case I do get emotional, because it's something that it's near and dear to my heart. I do believe that God has given me a heart of compassion. And when you are compassionate towards people, God allows you to see them in see them in their vulnerability. You don't, so I don't see them as Black. I don't see them as white. I don't see them as Asian or South Asian. I see you. I see you as a living, breathing soul. And so when I see that there is a gap with regards to how the community of Black and racialized, and, you know, even the Indigenous members of our community are being treated, something within me stirs. And it's in that stirring, I start to have discourse with myself, with members of the community, those that are, I would, you know, consider, and I'll give some depth and breadth in a little bit, but I consider those to be architects of influence. And understanding, you know, their why. And so not only am I compassionate to members of our community, but I'm compassionate to those that are providing care supports, which I know may be confounding to some, to say, how can I be compassionate to those that are causing harm to us? But the question that we should be asking is why? How did we get here? And how do we then fracture the narrative to change the outcome to those on the receiving end? And, to circle back to the question, like, how do I sit here and observe, and how does that make me feel? It breaks my heart.
Mm.
And, just to see the tears, to see the harm.
Mm.
And it goes back to purpose, one person at a time. It's not for Crystal to save the world, no, but is to be strategic and to understand the systems that I'm navigating, to make these systems now function in a way that is more palatable or accessible or even culturally responsive to the needs of our community.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the small things that make the difference. It's not the big things. And not every win is a win. There's a lot more tears than there are smiles.
Yeah.
But I circle back to what grounds me is that it's not a Black problem. It's not a white problem. It's not an Asian problem. It's not an Indigenous problem. It's not a South Asian problem. It's not an East Asian problem. It's a human problem.
Yeah.
And when we start looking at problems or issues we have as a community through that lens, it changes everything. I think of many of the writings of Paul when he talks about the lived experience, and he doesn't label the lived experience as an identity. He labels experience as a human condition or a human issue. And if we were to employ that in many of our narratives, a lot of the problems that we would see as problems would just peel back like layers of an onion for you to understand what the root of the problem is, for them to be then fixed. Hopefully I answered the question, and that
Yeah, I
provides the
think you have.
insight.
I'd love you to expand a little bit on the Paul, where you've talked about Paul, and he talks about lived experiences and not necessarily about problems, and provide some depth of clarity around what you mean, because I'm trying to break it down in my head, and I'm trying to think of an example right now, and I'm trying to think.
Yeah, so the human condition always surrounds fracturing, harm, hurt, disparities. And we tend to focus more on the differences, focus more on
Yes.
the harm or the action that caused the harm versus understanding the condition of why the harm was caused in the first place. So if I have, in simple terms, right? Because Paul is very philosophical, and, not having to, break it down in the way that, will take up the whole session. But in simple terms, if I know the condition that my friend Barbara has is anger, that's Barbara's condition. And as a consequence of the condition of anger, I am on the receiving end of that anger in whatever capacity that may look like. And now Barbara's condition has caused me harm. Now, what Paul is articulating is that how did that condition that Barbara has, we need to fix it, but we need to understand the why. How did Barbara get to that condition? Is it cultural? Is it societal? Is it through a lived experience that had happened in the home that got her to have this condition? And so when I understand that condition, even though I may be on the receiving end of the condition, where Paul was for the most of the time, he's now able to articulate and speak to the essence beyond the condition to say, hi, I know you have this condition, but here's what you need to do to self-regulate, or to create healing, or to turn away from. And that's what he speaks to. He never, when you look at the writings, especially to the churches, he always speaks to the behaviors, the conditions, but he never says, you person, you this, you that. He says, no, community. These are things that are wrong. Here are some things that you need to do to turn away so you can get closer to the right and get away from the wrong. And here's why, and I understand why these things are wrong, because I understand, because you see, even though he may not speak to the context, but he understood the context of what the societal norms were then and the cultural norms were then. So when he was writing the letters, he was writing it in context of understanding the foundation or to the why, right? So, when it comes to even um, what we're talking about today, like even, me seeing the issues surrounding mental health
Mm-hmm.
that's happening within our community. It's bigger than that. Right. And so, and I think that has also expanded, the why behind why I'm patient or why I'm compassionate or why I'm maybe that much more understanding compared to maybe other members of our community that may be in this space. And, and that's very important.
Yeah.
To,
Yeah.
if we don't, you can't fight an issue, Barbara, unless you understand the issue in its totality.
Yeah.
And
And I
I think
think,
sometimes we forget that.
yeah. And you touch a really great point by when you talk about it. If we don't understand the why is a lot, the root of the issues go a lot deeper to what we're presently seeing. We talked about earlier that, and I mentioned this earlier, that we've been dealing with this for decades, right?
Mhm.
And the root of it goes back to decades. And it's about how do we, in this present time, how can we respond in a way that helps to create better healing and reconciliation and understanding, that we can have better treatments, we can have better understanding of one another. God calls us to holiness and righteousness, and to live in that understanding of representing God and Christ in this earth, right? Which sometimes is not always easy to do, right? But when we adopt that frame of mind and that spirit, really the root is love. If we're going to do this, everything we do has to come from a place of true unconditional
Mhm.
love,
Mhm.
right? Because you can't have reconciliation unless you're choosing to love someone and move on without remembering, right?
Mhm.
And again,
Exactly.
in our human state, that's not always possible, but we don't walk in the flesh, we walk by the Spirit of God.
That's right. That's right.
So we're called to a higher way of
Standard.
being
Mhm.
and a higher standard of being. Um, for you as an advocate, you recently did some research. You were funded last year to do some research on this. I'm not sure if you're still conducting your research. Are there any initial findings or understandings that you are gleaning from the research you're doing around mental health among Black people in this country?
So thank you for the question. For those of you that may not be familiar with the research that I'm a part of, last year, I was funded $360,000 from the federal government through the institution to do a project called Bridging the Gaps, Developing Culturally Responsive Care with and for members of our Black community. And this project is a really meaningful project because it's multidimensional, meaning we have members of our community who have either accessed mental health services or their family members have, and they were the primary caregivers, and learning about their lived experiences of like the barriers that they encountered, what could have been done better with regards to accessing the supports and the services. What also is amazing about this project that we're also interviewing clinicians that are part of the multidisciplinary team. So physicians, nurses, social workers, youth workers, so anybody that is a part of the healing process or supports or resources within the community. But more, and then the final piece is we're going to be taking that information, and then we are going to be working with the members of the community in addition to our community partners in this project to then find mitigators with regards to bridging that gap. And then the other piece I forgot to mention was that we also have the privilege of accessing secondary data and finding out through the numbers of what are some of those gaps are as well. So we can report back to the institution so they can find mechanisms that would make it more streamlined for our community in particular, receiving mental health services and supports. So sadly, as it stands right now, Barbara, when it comes to receiving mental health supports and services, we tend to only access it when we're in a place of crises. And I know that surrounds, stigma, stereotypes, our historical traumas, our generational traumas, and we're trying to really break that cycle of, of how we got here in the first place, because the outcomes, when we go into institution in a place of crises, are not favorable for us. Meaning that the way they document our narrative, where one person will come into the mental health emergency room and it's documented that they are agitated. But if you and I come in with the same exact behaviors for the same exact reasons, we're labeled as aggressive. And so our treatment plan is going to be based on the aggressive narrative versus agitated narrative. And a lot, even though a lot of the findings within the body of research is qualitative, listening to the lived experiences or reading the lived experiences of a member of our community, you'll see very quickly that a lot of times we are quickly to be restrained, meaning physical restraint, chemical restraint. It's if you are in the stream of forensics, the length of stay in institution is significantly longer compared to those that may have committed the same exact crime as you, who then are released sooner. And this also bleeds over into our judicial system in the sense where, in one government report that I included in the study as a part of my literature review, is that there is a risk assessment that is done.
Yes.
And when this risk assessment is done, even when you do variable for variable, meaning like everything is the same for the two different members of the community, but if one is white and one is Black and in the research or Indigenous, even though everything is inputted the same, but the moment you put the nuances of skin color or any other social determinants of health, the risk factor for the Black and Indigenous person goes up higher where the white person stays here.
Why is that?
Because again, it's systemic, right? So here is a form that's supposed to be non-biased, but even the forms themselves, because somebody had to create the form, and that form that was created by somebody comes with a lens of bias. There's a bias in everything. We have biases, but here's the thing: when you said it earlier in our conversation, and I can't emphasize it enough, when you are navigating anything from a place of authenticity, sincerity, a place of reflection, above all, a place of love. And even though you may have those biases, you are acutely aware of them to the point where you don't allow them to skew how you're going to navigate that space or place, or how you choose to interact with another human being. And so, but not everybody has that capacity. So we're in a space.
Sorry,
go ahead.
let me just say, is it that people don't have that capacity, or they are choosing to make the assumption, or choosing to make a decision based on their cultural knowledge and what they perceive to be about a person of color?
So those inherently those thought process inherently, of course, are going to take
Right.
precedence into how we respond. But
Mhm.
another step further, a lot of what we believe, we've been conditioned to believe, right?
Yes.
And a
Yeah.
lot of that has been through subconscious conditioning.
Yeah.
And so that subconscious conditioning presents itself in various narratives. So, one thing I share with students, especially when we're talking about bias in the classroom, I make them do this activity where I'm like, close your eyes. And then I tell them a whole bunch of different professions.
Hmm.
And when I asked them to open their eyes, I said, okay, so who thought of, if I say doctor, who thinks of a Caucasian person? And people put their hand up because stereotypically we've been conditioned to believe
Yes.
that physicians are Caucasian, right?
Yes.
And so, when you think of how conditioning then lives in the media or lives in every narrative or point of contact we have with members of our community, it's only inherent that now when we're in a mental health space, that those subconscious
Yeah.
narratives
Yeah.
then live in the
Yeah.
day to day when caring for patients. So
Hmm.
you can see the danger behind that.
Yes.
And so to my point earlier, is it really the practitioner's fault in its totality? Or is like where do we start to lay blame? Where can we then lay blame? And so for myself as a practitioner, I have to learn, and as a researcher, I have to be compassionate to say, well, even if you do something that is harmful,
Hmm.
I need to know, do you fully understand the consequences or the impact for your decision making? Sometimes the answer is yes, you are very intentional because you strongly believe in this narrative towards a particular group.
Mm.
But a lot of times, and sadly, what is I see presenting in this narrative in the research is that a lot of it is so subconsciously deeply rooted
Yeah.
that
We're not even aware that we're doing it.
we're not even aware
Yeah.
impact versus intent.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it goes back to this is a bigger problem,
Yeah.
right? And I want us as a community to stop getting, we need to stop getting at, oh, the person versus understanding the why behind the
Mm.
person doing this. And it's not for me to, I'm not giving anybody a green light to treat people poorly. No. But what I am saying is before we start to lay blame and start pointing fingers,
Hmm.
we need to assess the why. How did this get to here?
Wow. Ooh, I commend you for trying to understand that why, because I don't know if we will ever get to the root of that particular question.
Never.
And if I just don't, yeah, because like I said, we've been dealing with this for centuries, for
Mm-hmm.
decades. Um, and even before there was slavery,
That's right.
right? Even before there was slavery, there were differences and people were prejudiced against other people for
Yeah.
that just because they belonged to one tribe over another
Yeah.
tribe, or
Yeah.
they believed one thing more than another person believed,
That's right.
right? There were just differences, right? I mean, but if you look at the Bible days, the prejudices were things like
Very real.
they had more sheep than we had more sheep, and their
Mm-hmm.
sheep is drinking from our wells. We need to stop them, and so the battles and the wars would begin, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I know that you are creating awareness and more advocacy. You recently, this year actually, won an award for a short film called Silent Voices. Can you tell us a little bit about that film? And I think it was the Toronto International Nollywood Film Festival that you won the award. Please tell
Yes.
us a little bit about the film and what's its purpose and what do you hope it will achieve?
Again, so this is one of those moments like I can't emphasize enough as this walking in obedience. If
Yes.
anybody would have said this film is going to win an award, I'd be like,
Yeah.
no, because as again, as a clinician, as a researcher, as an academic, we don't do it, stereotypically, that's outside of the wheelhouse, right? We
Yeah.
don't do that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We are very, not to say, and it's interesting, we are very linear, but the academics I know, they're the most creative people that I know.
Wow.
So I find it so confounding that we allow ourselves to pigeonhole ourselves to a narrative that doesn't align with who we are as people. And I do believe it's just because of just the culture of
Hmm.
academia.
Hmm.
And I think, I'm grateful that I walked in the obedience. As scared as I was, I will tell you, it was a walking on water moment. But the reason, so, preface, the reason why Silent Voices came to life was, it was during, the COVID was, coming to an end, but the racial pandemic and the mental health, I want to say epidemic, was on a surge. And
Yeah.
I was seeing in the papers, in the media, just how we as a community have been impacted. And I just remember going to a friend of mine, and because he's a videographer, and I said, I have this idea. Would you be so kind to give me some in-kind time to do a quick 2-minute public service announcement to our community that we can put on Instagram and on Facebook,
Hmm.
surrounding the importance of mental health and that it's okay not to be okay.
Hmm.
So that way people can, we can start having these conversations and not be afraid to have these conversations. And again, I do respect historical trauma, generational trauma, depending on, where you are globally, like, we just don't talk about it.
Right.
It's taboo,
Yeah.
the stigmas, all of that. And he said yes. And he goes, I know that, we can do it at the studio. We can get some in-kind time at the studio from from Vance World. I know I can say Vance World Media. Vance World Media would have no problem doing in-kind time because, he believes in stuff like this. I said,
Hmm.
great. I have some members of our community that I know will be happy to be a part of this public service announcement. And that was the birth of Silent Voices, unbeknownst to any of us. I
Wow.
literally walked in with 4 questions. And I asked every single, so I don't know if you've seen the film or not, but I've asked every person the same exact question. But when you watch the film, everybody had a different answer.
Yeah.
So in the world of research, we call that phenomenology. Here you are sharing your lived experience with me and not even realizing that I took my skills of research and applied it to this video. And it
Yeah.
wasn't until we were looking at the footage and my friend said to me, we can put this together as a short film. Forget about the public service announcement. This is really great footage. And when we looked at it, I'm like, okay, let's do it. And so we put it in not last year to TIFF,
Hmm.
but they didn't accept it. I guess it didn't, I don't know if I want to say, I don't think they're ready to have that conversation yet,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's okay, right? For every, disappointment, it's an appointment, as we say.
Hmm.
And so we put it in, and I remember doing the screening, the premiere, and somebody said to me, have you heard of the Toronto International Nollywood Film Festival? You should put it in. This is a great film. Why haven't you submitted it? And I'm
Hmm.
like, I only know of TIFF. I'm not a person that knows the film or the film industry.
Hmm.
And I only know TIFF because it's everywhere.
Hmm.
Summertime in
Hmm.
Toronto, who doesn't
Hmm.
know about TIFF? Who doesn't go to TIFF events? Like, it's something to
Exactly.
do.
Yeah.
Summertime in Toronto.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, here we are. And, it's really about just starting the conversation and making people understand that, mental health is a health issue,
Yeah.
and really on a self a selfish mission, Barbara, if I can say, is that I'm trying to veer us from the word mental health and start saying neurological issue,
Right.
because there's the brain is not well, and because the brain is not well, we are responding to the brain not being well, right? And we always assume that when the brain's not well, it's a stroke or it's some kind of other neurological disorder. But our brain is a computer. It uploads and downloads information, and how we input that information and how we process it gives us a response. And that response can be a good response or a bad response, but a response all nonetheless. And if people were just really to understand the simplicity, even the complexity of mental health, then maybe, just maybe, we can break down some of those stigmas and stereotypes and barriers. But that's what essence of Silent Voices is just sharing that lived experience and just starting the conversation. That's really all it is.
Wow. Well, I have not seen the movie, but I will definitely. I'm not sure where where can people find it to watch it if they wanted to see it?
Yeah, so at this point, it doesn't live on a platform.
Right.
Only because we're trying to figure out the logistics behind it. But I've been privileged and have had the honor to do screenings throughout the GTA with institutions. So at the school, uh, with a few of unions, I've had the opportunity to share with them, some professional organizations. And we actually just did a community screening a few weeks ago
Right.
at Vance World Media Studios. So we are in the process of trying to get some more uptake of, where screenings can happen, especially in the public forum. And happy to share once I have some more dates in the new year, which I know will be coming. Because
Okay.
we are in the works of getting some more public screenings
Right.
organized.
Well, I really do hope that more people get to watch this film, become more aware of this movie, and begin to talk about it and spread the word. Because really and truly, as you said, mental health isn't about the extreme neurological challenges. It's how we process and manage, as you said, everyday living, moving out of that sort of survival mode, which most of us are in. And we're constantly in that state of panic and worry and anxiety, and we're just trying to get through each day. But how can we get to a place where we are truly thriving and living in a place of calm, where, our autonomic our nervous system is in that place where we can manage without the stress, right?
Absolutely.
And I think that is, I get a sense that that's your heart and that's your goal and your passion. And it's not just, equity, we would love to see equity in everything and in every part of society, right? Where people are being treated fairly, people are being treated justly, not because of the color of their skin or their social status, or the way they speak, the language that they speak, the tone of language that they speak, but because they're just human beings, and all humans are supposed to be treated with respect and regard. And if we would learn to treat people, as Jesus said, love your neighbor as you love yourself. If we would love our neighbor as we love ourselves, wow, what a wonderful world, as they say, as the song goes, what a wonderful world
Wonderful
it
world
will
it would
be.
be. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Now, I know that we were talking earlier before we came into this podcast that you're thinking about doing a part 2 of Silent Voices, right?
Yes.
What do you see that, because obviously Silent Voices is the initial conversation. What does the part 2 look like, or what should it look like? And how do you need help to make that happen?
Thank you so much. So help would come from funding. So right now we're in the process of looking to acquire funding through various organizations and institutions that would fund such a project. What it's going to look like, it's going to be an evolution, actually. So the part 2 is like, part 1 was the conversation, and part 2 is understanding the lived experience through the lens of the day-to-day experience, for those that are managing mental health, and what that looks like, and showing the world some of the barriers that we tend to experience. And I'll leave it at that. I won't go into too much of the detail because I really want it to be you know, a surprise to those
Yeah.
watching it, and see that evolution piece. But really, you know, this is where the deeper learning is going to happen, right? The first part was just, let's start the conversation.
Mm.
And I'm grateful. I want to tell you, you know, one thing that's been very impactful with Silent Voices, and this is how, again, why it's important to listen to that still small voice when
Yes.
when it asks you to do
Yes.
something and it makes
Yeah.
no sense, and you just do it. Because I've yet to be in a space, and so you know it's definitely ordained, and it goes back to just, he leaves the one for the 99.
Yeah.
But every single space that I've been in, and we've showed this film, I want to say we've showed this film about 8 times already, if I'm not mistaken. And every single time there's at least minimum one person that would speak, and they will share their lived experience, and then they end with, I've never shared this with anybody in my entire life.
Wow.
Thank you for giving me the genesis to my healing.
Yes. Yes.
Um, and so that's why I know that this is definitely, this Silent Voices is not about me. It's not about those that necessarily participated and they were vulnerable in sharing their lived experiences. It's not about the videographer. It's not even about the studio. But what it really is about is connecting us as human beings. And more importantly, it's a conduit to create healing in a
Mm.
way that I would have never imagined. So I do remove myself from that, because I wouldn't say I did that, because I didn't, right? I didn't do that. I didn't create healing. But through this body of work, healing has happened.
Yeah. You know, as you're talking, and I'm hearing you talk about the impact of this movie and the ability, how it liberates people to find their voice to speak, right? What comes to mind is that I'm sure when you looked at your life at the age of 18, starting your first degree in nursing, you never envisaged this path where you are an advocate for Black mental health and being the woman that you are. But constantly you said throughout this convenience, it's about obedience. Obedience to that still small voice that's nudging and prodding you in directions that you might be slightly resistant to, and have some trepidations about getting into, but God has certainly navigated your path in ways
Yep.
that you would never have dreamed or imagined. What would you say, or what would you say to the woman right now who is making a decision, or navigating a path that's taken her down a completely different road that she originally thought she would be going down?
There's several things I would say to that woman.
Yeah.
That it may not make sense today, but it'll make sense tomorrow.
Mm.
And every disappointment, every door closed, every hurt,
Mm.
every shame, you
Yeah.
know, everything that you have experienced, even your own personal traumas, in that journey when you veer from one direction to the next, there's a purpose. And it's okay to be scared.
Yes.
It's okay to, have those intimate conversations with God and say, I don't understand why. And the response will be, why not you? That's usually how that ends. But, take comfort in being uncomfortable.
Mm.
That took a very, very, very long time for me. And I say it again, right? Like, you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable,
Yeah.
because Walking in obedience means you're walking blindly and you only can see your feet every step you're going, but you can't see the bigger picture, right? I think of Psalms 119, 105, right? The word is a light onto my feet and a lamp onto my path. I think I mixed it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
But because when you're walking in obedience, you only can see so far ahead,
Yes.
and it doesn't make sense. And part of, if looking back now, I remember, and part of my testimony would be, is that when I first took the job at the institution, I was at a crossroad, and the crossroad was, I had the opportunity to get the manager job in the emergency room, and I interviewed for it. And then I also interviewed for the job at the institution to become a professor.
Right.
And I remember I hummed and I hawed because, the hospital's down the street, but the institution is far from where I live. And I hummed and I hawed, and in all honesty, I went into prayer and fasting, and I said, okay, I said, I don't know what to do, because I can get this job and it's down the street,
Yes.
a whole 15 minutes from where I live.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty blissful.
Yeah.
But the still small voice said, no, take the job. And I'm like, but it's a pay cut. I took a massive pay cut to work at the
Wow.
institution.
Wow.
When I took the job, I took a real horrible, horrible pay cut.
Wow.
And I remember saying, I don't understand. I've taken a pay cut. I have to travel halfway across the city to an institution that I don't know how I feel about. And I remember stepping foot up even on campus, and I'm like, this is just training ground. I'm just passing through. I'm going to learn what I need to learn,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to keep the train moving.
Yeah.
Now, I say all of that to say to that woman, what if I did not walk in obedience?
Right.
Would there be a conversation right now with Dr. Garvey and Barbara in understanding purpose? Would there have been a silent voices? Would there have been the path of acquiring all these accolades? Would there have been me coming in contact with the people at the right time to generate healing? Would there have been the students that would they have passed if I didn't get in contact with them, for them to make sure that they had the supports needed for me to advocate? Like, would there have been? Let's go back 20 years ago. What if I did not listen to Mary and I didn't show up for
Yeah.
the formality of the interview?
Yeah.
Would there have been,
Yes.
and so a lot of what doesn't make sense will make sense eventually. And I think, Barbara, Paul says it best, right? I forget where he writes it, when he was in jail, and he says, he talks about, take pride in the hardship.
Yes.
I've been flogged.
Yes.
I've been shipwrecked.
Yes.
And he goes on the laundry list of all the things
That he's been
that he's
through.
been through. And he goes, but God, right?
Yeah.
At the end of it. And so, I'll be lying to you if I sat here and said the journey has been easy. No, actually, it's been quite challenging. That many days I just want to kick rocks.
Mm-hmm.
And it's challenging to the point where tears is rolling down my face, and it's not a cute cry by no means of the imagination. But then, like Paul, right, I find comfort in Paul's writings, so that's why I reference him a lot.
Yeah.
I just say, you know what, God, you have a plan, right? Every harm, every hurt, every disappointment, every traumatic experience I've been through, it's not for me, but it's to refine me as the refiner that he is,
Yes.
for me to be the best version of myself, to do the work that you've called me to do. And
Yeah.
so I think, again, when you as that woman that's going down a path that makes no sense, when you have that paradigm shift, it's easier to find your why, but then you take comfort in your pain.
Yes.
What an oxymoron that is.
Yes.
But you really do.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to thank you for sharing, because I think as we come to this end of 2025 and we go into 2026 and we start this new year, many people have, I think women get to a point where they say to themselves, I really want to fulfill God's purpose. I know God's given me this thing to do. But they're questioning their own abilities, they're questioning their academic knowledge, they're questioning their spheres of influence, and, they're questioning their financial capacity. But you have constantly said, and I just feel like this is the word that God really wants to bring across in this podcast today. It's your act of obedience, your act of trusting God, and that faith of trusting God in that moment where He's taking you down a road that doesn't make sense, but you choose to obey and you choose to trust God by faith and step out into
Oh,
that unknown,
yeah,
knowing that you don't walk alone, but God is with you every step of the way, and He is
yeah,
working all things out for your good.
you're good.
And I see that you're being very emotional right now. What's going on with you? What are you feeling right now?
Your words when you said it, right? It
Mm,
just lands, right?
yeah,
Act of obedience, act of
yeah,
faith. And like I can't emphasize enough, right? It's the research in itself is a lot of heavy lifting, right?
yes,
It's emotionally taxing.
yes, yes.
Um, but also when you say, when I heard your words land, right? Because words are breath and the
Mm-hmm.
breath is the image of God.
Yeah,
It just touched me in my chest, right? It
yeah,
ministered to me
yeah.
in the sense where, it just reminded me like you continue to forge ahead. Like and the
Doing
other
what you're
part,
doing.
yeah, continue to forge ahead. But the other pieces that I was thinking about, and as you were talking, and and other women are listening, is that the only person that you should care uh about what they think is God.
Come on. Come on.
The only
Yeah,
person.
yeah,
Because what you don't want is to, when you have to give account to why you didn't walk in your purpose. You don't want to have to give account. So I gave you a gift to write, but you choose to sit on your hands and not write.
mm,
I given you a gift to speak, but you chose to be silent. The devil is great at creating fear.
yes.
And Dr. Charles Stanley said it best: false evidence appearing real,
Very
may he
real.
rest in peace.
Yeah.
And the enemy's job is to understand what your gift is and then plant seeds of fear from the very genesis when you realize that you have this gift, so
Yeah.
you don't act out on it, so that way the blessing of those that need that blessing will never receive it.
Never receive it.
And so, let me remind people that there's a soul waiting on you to receive their blessing, because people think that blessing is in the four walls of the church. The blessings that people have received through the work that I've been a part of
Yeah.
are not a part of the church. Some of them have never even been to church.
Yep.
Many of them don't even believe in God. And it's in the point of contact that
Mm,
I've had with them. They start to question their values, their beliefs.
mm.
Those that have lost faith have renewed faith. But I will not be a hypocrite. Am I scared? Absolutely.
Come on. Yep.
Do I experience imposter syndrome?
Yep.
Absolutely. Do I question what I'm doing? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be all, and I'm being vulnerable. I'm not going to sit here and be all poised and,
No.
act
Like you've
like
got it all together,
I
like we
got it all
have it all
together.
together. No, we don't.
No, far from it.
Far from it, yeah.
I am just a vessel
Hmm.
willing to say yes.
Yeah.
And you're right. The word is, the season is obedience. And like I said earlier, sometimes the obedience comes at a cost of kicking and screaming. And don't get it wrong, I've had my moments like Gideon. I've had my Jonah moments. Like things go awry, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna make this U-turn and go back because evidently I didn't listen. Like,
Yeah.
right? Like those moments have happened. But what I've learned in this season, because I don't want any more Jonah moments, and I don't want any more Gideon moments, and I don't want any more certain moments that I've had. I'm being honest.
Yeah.
I've been very intentional that when something presents itself, I'm still and I sit with it. And I said, okay, before I go left or right, which way do you want me to go?
Yeah.
And then I move.
Yeah.
As petrified as I am, I may not show it, but best believe I am. But then I think back, right, of where he's brought me from
Yeah.
and to where I'm going.
Yeah.
And so even here, regardless of all that I've achieved,
Yeah.
I'm nowhere near to where he wants me to be. And I know that. I'm still in the process.
But that's what I'm understanding. It's okay to be in the process, right? Because the reality is you have said yes. You are determined to continue saying yes to God. And that comes from experience and knowledge and understanding and wisdom that you've gleaned over the years of all the things that you've been through. When you know that you've seen God move in your life and you've seen God um, bring you down the path and where it's led you to and how it's what you get confident in I can trust God because he's done it before.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, Lord, this looks like you again. And like you said, we still feel the trepidations, we still feel the anxieties, we're still feeling the can I really do this? But I choose to say yes because I know that you've done this before and
Yeah,
you've brought me through it before. And
yeah,
that comes with that's the growth and the strengthening of your faith
yeah.
as you mature in him
Mm-hmm.
and know more of him.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
My sister, what is next for you? I mean, you're still in this research, you're still doing this research, you've got a desire to do this part two of this movie, Silent Voices. Um, where do you see the 2026 and beyond leading you?
Wherever God takes me. Because I know he can't be put in a box.
No,
And
and
I know my ways are not his ways and his thoughts are
mm,
not my thoughts. And really and truly, because of what has transpired in
yes,
these last few years, I have no idea uh, what next steps are going to look like.
yeah,
I will say that I've been blessed and honored that in the new year there will be. I had the privilege of writing a textbook chapter, and again, this is one of those next God moments. I will testify and share is that
mhm,
after finishing the PhD, I couldn't I could not for the life of me, Barbara, get this darn thesis or our dissertation published. Like I did the manuscripts, I submitted it to different um journals and so be it, and just couldn't get a bite, couldn't. And in all transparency, frustrated, right?
yeah,
Frustrated. 'Cause I'm just like, it's an expectation you get your
yeah,
PhD work published.
yeah,
Couldn't get it published. And last summer, I had a colleague of mine, a near and dear friend, a firm foundation,
mm,
um, that, a person that I went to school with, and, we've had the privilege of working together. Just, everybody needs,
Mhm.
somebody like that in their
Yeah.
life that,
Yeah.
they have your back even when you're not even in the room, one of
Yeah.
those peoples.
Yeah.
And so this friend of mine was at a conference somewhere, and made friends with a book editor, and says, I need, do you know any, and they were talking, and she goes, I'm looking for somebody, and I just can't, I've searched the globe, and I just can't find anybody to write this particular chapter in the textbook.
Mm.
And my girlfriend picks up the phone, and she goes, I know your plate is full with this research project, but I'm going to send you email, and you have to say yes. You cannot say no. And I'm just like, oh gosh, what is this? And so I see the email. The email was, would you be interested in writing a chapter about systemic racism? And when I read the outline, again, God moment. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's my dissertation. There's my thesis right there on paper. Okay, now I understand why I couldn't get this thing published, God. You make sense. And so anyway, that we're wrapping up that chapter now. It's very, I want to say that's been a labor of love. That has been
Mm.
emotionally taxing. And I think that's part of the reason why giving birth to that chapter has been nothing short than um, climbing the mount, in all honesty.
Yeah.
It's been a labor of
Mhm.
love.
Mhm.
So that's coming out in the spring.
Wow.
And I know that book, I know that chapter, in particular that textbook. I know it's a textbook about ethics, more particularly for nursing,
Mhm.
healthcare. But what is great about the chapter that I wrote, and this is what has gotten the editor excited, is that it functions in all stratospheres, in every sphere you can think of. So
Wow.
this is not a nursing issue. It's not a healthcare issue. It's not a business issue. It's not a IT issue, but it's a human
Human.
issue.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited about that body of work coming out. And I'm grateful for all of the members of the community that has girded me through the birthing process of this work, because it needed quite a bit of massaging to
Yeah.
to get it where it needs to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Well,
yeah.
congratulations on that. Um, Please keep me informed about when that comes out. I can
Yes.
promote it through my network. But I do want to say I look forward to what comes next with you. As you were talking about this chapter, I keep hearing a book will also come, right? And maybe the book may come out of your research. I don't know, right? But I see that in your future.
Thank
And
you. I receive it.
I just want to say thank you for being obedient.
Mm,
Thank you for always saying yes to God so that other humans get to know that they are loved and respected and someone has compassion for them.
yeah.
And you are nurturing compassion in the hearts of those who are treating those with mental illness
Mhm,
to care more, not just about the color of their skin,
mhm,
but to care about the root of their condition, which is the thing that needs to be healed first and foremost.
mhm. Yeah.
So thank you, Dr. Crystal. It has been a blessing and
Yes.
a privilege having you on the show today. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much, and I appreciate it. And I'm looking forward, to having more conversations like this,
Yes.
especially in the realm of mental health. Like, I would love, to even have conversations with other members of our community in this space,
Hmm.
to really unpack, especially for women. Black women, we suffer in silence. Not to say Black men don't, because they suffer in silence in their own way.
Yes.
But with your body of work focusing on women, just giving space for Black women to share, their lived experiences and unpack it, and, create space for healing. Because that's what I see. This is what your work does. It creates healing,
Yes,
right?
it
And
does. Yes.
healing, comes in various
Various
spaces,
forms.
places, and,
Yeah.
and it comes in various forms. But I
Yeah.
really do. I know, as this work that you're doing, which is so amazing, by the way, as it's going to evolve,
Mm.
that it's gonna take form and take shape in a way that there'll be more spaces and more voices even in this platform. So
Yeah.
I look forward to being a part of those conversations and
Thank you.
supporting the work that you're doing.
Amen. How do people find you? I mean, if you're looking for more people for your research, how can people find you, connect with you?
Yeah, so they can connect with me on Instagram, uh, DRC Garvey or Dr. C Garvey,
Mhm.
and they can send a message on Instagram. And yeah,
Okay. Well, we will have that details in the descriptions of this particular episode, and you can reach out directly to Dr. Garvey. We look forward to what comes next for you. We really do.
thank you.
But
Thank
God
you so much.
bless you and thank you again. It has been my honor chatting with you today.
It's been an honor as well. Thanks again.
Okay. As we close today's conversation, Dr. Crystal reminds us that the gentle prompts and nudges of God may feel scary and uncertain, but all God requires is our obedience. Obedience doesn't require perfection, only your willingness. When God invites us to advocate, to speak, or to serve, He also equips us with the grace, wisdom, and compassion we need for the journey. Dr. Crystal's story is a powerful reminder that walking in obedience can create ripples of healing far beyond what we can see. If this episode encouraged you, I invite you to share it with another woman who may be wrestling with her own call to obedience. And if you've not done so as yet, don't forget to subscribe to Your Deep Life for Christian Women so you never miss a conversation designed to help you live aligned, grounded, and led by God's purpose. Until next time, stay rooted, stay faithful, and continue living your deep life. Bye for now.